Hi everyone, Anthony Fantano here, the internet's busiest music nerd, and it's time for a review of the new Flatbush Zombies album, Better Off Dead. Flatbush Zombies are a New York hip-hop trio consisting of Michi Darko, Zombie Juice, and Eric Ark Elliott. I first heard of these guys not too long ago when they put out a mixtape titled Drugs, and honestly the tape didn't really stop me in my tracks enough to sort of make me want to review it, so I figured I would kind of sit down and give a hard listen to this new project of theirs, especially since they seem to be gaining more momentum behind this new one. Some of their biggest tracks so far have come off of this mixtape: Palm Trees, MRAZ, and 222. Plus, the trio has been continuing to develop their sound and have been stretching out into different modern hip-hop styles. Now, a lot of you may be conscious of this new underground hip-hop movement going on in New York right now, Beast Coast. You've got acts associated with this thing like Pro Era, Underachievers, and of course Flatbush Zombies. And thus far Flatbush has kind of been the underdog in this movement, I feel. However, at least artistically, I think Flatbush Zombies kind of come out ahead with this new project. Better Off Dead delivers a series of songs that are some of the boldest, grimiest, most in-your-face hip-hop that you're gonna hear out of New York this year. And even though this project stands pretty long at 19 tracks, I think it's at least somewhat diverse enough to want to listen to the entire thing. On most fronts, this project impresses. For one, the production. Eric Ark Elliott is a very sharp producer, sharper than I've actually heard him on even his solo stuff. With the opening track on here, I love the way the heavy rock guitars, the crushing drum fill, the operatic vocal cut, and the plucked strings come together, and you know, we have four sounds here that seemingly come from different worlds, but they come together to make a really ear-grabbing intro. You've got tracks on here like Death and NEPHILIM and God Bless the Dead that all have kind of an atmospheric, spacey, and somewhat psychedelic vibe, something I think fans of the Underachievers would enjoy. And there are other tracks on here that go in that direction as well, like Palm Trees and 222, but those songs are much more serene by comparison with their instrumentals, especially Palm Trees, which has these beautiful cooing vocals that are sampled and played throughout the track. Woo, woo. You've got boom bap cuts on here like Club Soda, which is this really classy instrumental with these soaring vocals and a nice bounce to the groove. The instrumental on Regular and Complex goes for this vibe as well. Also MINEPHUCK, which has a pretty nice sample coming from the Luis Enrique's Bakalov track Preludio, which is a sample I had to look up listening to this mixtape because I remember hearing a sample of that song as well on a nonfiction track, which is pretty awesome because I'm sure there's got to be a connection there because I read that Zombie Juice was influenced by Ill Bill. There's the track Thugnificent on here, which has this slow, druggy, auto-tuned chorus. It's not a terrible track. I feel like the vocals were kind of annoying and weren't sitting too well with me at first, but as I tripped through the tape more and more and more, it kind of grew on me a little bit. Then there's the song Live from Hell, which is one of the few tracks on here that's produced by another person, Harry Fraud, and the beat on this thing is absolutely killer, like a trap nightmare. Really eerie synths and psychedelic, trippy, acid-soaked guitar solos throughout this thing. The only instrumental and chorus on here that I think is even more nightmarish is the song Drug Parade, which maybe is one of the few moments where I think Flatbush Zombies are so eccentric and so in-your-face that it gets a little obnoxious. Wholly, the instrumentals on this album are a lot of things. They're aggressive, they're grimy, they could be smooth and sweet and kind of chilled out and druggy. They could be chilling and eerie and psychotic and unnerving as well. But above all, even when Flatbush Zombies do something instrumentally that feels like it's a bit of a trip backwards, they do a great job of keeping with the New York hardcore hip-hop tradition of being reckless, witty, gritty, and kind of rebellious. Now, as far as flow and lyrics go on this album, Eric, Zombie Juice, and Meech all rap on this LP, and they've all got kind of their own vocal style as well, so it's not like you're hearing one MC after another and you really can't tell who is who. In fact, I think a few of these guys actually have voices that were just made for rap, like the genre was invented decades ago just so that in the future we could hear a guy like Michi Darko on the mic. The dude has this gruff, low baritone, which sometimes he's not so rough with it. Sometimes he reaches into a mid-range, which feels really smooth, really natural. But most of the time when you hear this guy's voice, it's gonna be zany and remind you of a ton of different people just kind of mashed up together into this bloody pile of MC corpses. There are moments when I hear his voice and I think a little bit of Old Dirty Bastard, or maybe a member or two of Onyx, or Busta Rhymes. And oddly enough, Kane from the Yin Yang Twins. There are quite a few tracks on here that actually remind me of sort of that crunk era of Southern hip hop, like the chorus on the track Bliss, which, I mean, Meech's vocals on that really sound to me like Kane's vocals whenever he would write a chorus. And of course, the flow on the track Palm Trees kind of reminds me of a slowed down version of the flow on the chorus Get Low. And there are moments on here where the inflections and the flows of Meech and Zombie Juice kind of remind me of early horrorcore acts, like Gravediggaz, for example. Now, Zombie Juice, like I said before, definitely an Ill Bill influence that I read about, but from the first moment I heard this guy's voice, I was like, man, it really kind of sounds like he listens to a little bit of Eazy-E. Now, as far as vocal register, Zombie has a really great separation from Meech in the mix because his voice comes off so high, so hyped, so energetic. To me, he comes off just as ear-grabbing, just maybe not as cartoony. And as far as Eric, he's kind of the middle ground vocally. Not so low, not so high, and just a little bit of rasp. Now, if there's a downside to the vocals and the cadences on this album, and this is essentially what kind of drew me away from Flatbush Zombies at first, dating back to their Drugs mixtape, their vocals are so over the top, they're so just crazy a lot of the time. They can kind of drown out their flow talents, their lyrical talents and abilities, and the bright spots in the production too. Now, as far as lyrics go, these guys are, again, staying with that hardcore hip-hop tradition of being braggadocious, a lot of wordplay, of course insults are thrown into the mix, grimy, gritty. While I wouldn't say their rhymes are smart or incredibly socially conscious to the point where you're like, whoa, these guys are really thinking about the world. But I wouldn't really say they're dumb lyrically either. There are plenty of moments on here where Zombie Juice or Meech approach issues of racial inequality and hypocrisy. I mean, that's really the entire theme of the opening track on here, American Pie. One of Meech's lines on this track sticks out to me about him having money, now him having bread, and people coming to him with their hands out and all they're gonna get is their palms red from the bloodshed. Oh. Eric comes through with shots at the Miss America contest as well as the radio's blandness. Zombie Juice has some things to say, really some threats to make toward Michael Bloomberg. And while Flatbush Zombies do come through with some corny lines here and there, like kick ass like Bernie Mac and Mac on these hoes, what I think needs to be appreciated is that these guys have delivery. The voices on this thing, especially Meech's, it's interesting. They feel grimy, they feel hard, they feel in your face, but simultaneously, whenever a line comes through as being kind of silly, it's like his voice, his delivery is cartoony enough to the point where it's kind of funny. I think that comes through on the fuck, 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 fuck verse that he does on the track Bliss, on another verse where he's talking about being too mentally unstable to be fucking with them labels. Imagine him kind of yakety yakking around these round tables. And past these lines, I think there are plenty of highlights throughout this project. I think Flatbush Zombies, even though there are some duds here and there, they place great songs throughout Better Off Dead. Like for one, Juice's verse on the track MINEPHUCK is incredibly urgent, it's passionate. The second half of the song Death, where Meech is rapping, the serial killer verse he does on this song is fantastic. Cleverly referenced and entertaining verse. TEARZ has this really smooth, soulful chorus despite the fact that it's Meech singing on the song with his really rough voice. And on the track Regular and Complex with Meech rapping about rap being illegal and then him writing bars and being behind bars and ba, continuing that rhyme scheme, that was just another moment where I feel like he's kind of clever but very charismatic and just fun to listen to. As far as features on here, there is the song Club Soda, which has Action Bronson on the final verse. He really delivers his most understated feature that I've ever heard him do. And Danny Brown, on the opposite end of the spectrum, on the song Drug Parade, delivers the most animated, over-the-top verse I've ever heard him do, to the point where I can't even make out a lot of what he's saying. I feel like he was up against these other rappers rappers on this tape who also have incredibly eccentric voices, and this track wasn't really a competition of bars, but really who has the craziest freaking voice. And the song MRAZ, a really hard-hitting chorus on here that I like, maybe one of the catchiest on the entire album, has this really awesome beat change up with the synth line from Eazy-E's Boys in the Hood coming through, and then it goes back to the original instrumental. Again, solid, memorable, and enjoyable moments occur throughout this thing. Originally, I feel like there were some adjustments my ears needed to make, or just my head needed to make, to the voices and just how over the top they are on this album, but once I got past that, I was enjoying the lyricism, I was enjoying the instrumentals, I was enjoying the flows, and overall I was just enjoying the personality that Flatbush Zombies brought to the table, of which there is a lot. Maybe Better Off Dead is a little long-winded, maybe there are some tracks that maybe this project could have done without, but I think this is definitely one of the major highlights of this year, as far as free rap projects go at least. I'm feeling a light to decent 8 on this thing. Transition. But if you've given Better Off Dead a listen, what did you think of it? Did you love it? Hate it? Why? What do you think I should review next? And that's it. Anthony Fantano, Flatbush Zombies, Better Off Dead, forever.